Story 1. A Mother's Love. I was a registered nurse employed by a large jail in a very large southern city. I had a normal life. 3 kids, a police officer husband, and a nice home in the suburbs. The only thing really different about me was that my own mother had died when I was less than a year old. This used to bother me when I was little, and I would wake up in tears for no reason and cry, "Why did you leave me?" I'd worked the night shift at the jail, so by the time I got home and got the kids off to school, it was at least 9 a.m. before I could go to bed. I was really tired this one day and was really sleeping hard when my husband said that he and my middle son were going to the store. I think I mumbled and turned over and went right back to sleep. All of a sudden, I heard a lawnmower cutting grass. I could smell the fresh fragrance. It was strange, though. I thought I overslept because it was dark out. I looked around and saw I was in a cemetery, and it was not. Still, the lawnmower and the smell. All of a sudden, I walked up on the strangest sight. It was stuck in the ground by a headstone, like you put flowers in and things by the grave. It looks like a brightly lit sign, and it had a name on it. It was right next to the headstone that had my mother's name on it. And then I heard a voice calling my name. It said, "I've come to be with you a while because I'm needed." This was my mother. I thought, but that's impossible. The voice spoke and said, "No, I am your mother." I asked her to come where I could see her, and her reply was that she'd been gone from Earth too long, and there was nothing for me to see. She continued to tell me that she would put out her hand when it was needed. I begged her to come see my children, my husband. She said, "I have seen them all, and it won't happen to you. Not like me. I won't let it." I started to ask 100 questions, but she would only say she would be where she was needed. Then she was gone. I woke up in a bright bedroom with tears running down my face. I thought I'd had a dream, but why did I still smell fresh cut grass? I rested across my bed, thinking of what had happened. Suddenly, my 12-year-old son came tearing into the room, threw his arms around me, and sobbed, "Mommy, we almost died. A big car hit us." I jumped up and ran to our garage to see about my husband. He put his arms around me and assured me they were both okay, but our car was totaled. He told me the strangest thing. He said a big Oldsmobile had broadsided them, going over 50 miles an hour. Our car crumpled, folded up on impact, except where the front seats were. Other officers said that it looked like a giant hand had reached out and held that part of the car, kept it from collapsing, because the rest of the car was gone. They should have died in that accident. All of a sudden, I remembered my mother's promise. "I will put my hand out when it is needed." You see, my mother was expecting me when my dad went off to sea duty in the U.S. Navy at the beginning of World War II. He never saw my mother again. I was a year old before he was introduced to me. My mother loved my dad with almost superhuman love. She had gone through such loneliness while he was gone. I believe that she decided that she would prevent my husband from being taken from me. She wanted to prevent me from having the kind of heartache and grief that she had. So she came to me, and she put her hand out where it was needed. Thank you, Mom. Story 2. Camp. I was a chaperone for a Girl Scout camping trip when I was about 16. All the kids were between 5 and 9. I had a cabin with 6 kids I was in charge of at night. One night, one of my kids left the cabin. I woke up seeing her leave. I chased after her thinking that she was going to the latrine, but she was sleepwalking. I'm out in the dark, barefoot, trying to coax this sleepy kid back inside when I hear something big out in the woods. I grab the kid, and she starts screaming and goes stiff. I carry her back inside. Everyone in my cabin is awake now, and I don't sleep for the rest of the night. Day 2. Sleepwalker has moved to another cabin. That afternoon, when I'm walking the kids back from the latrine, Sleepwalker and another kid sneak away from the group. I realize they are gone, get help. Find the kids 15 minutes later. Back at camp, they start telling scary stories about their sneaking away, saying it was the kitty cow who lives in the woods. Night 2. Wake up. It's gotten cold. I get up to close the windows and the shutters, and I see a light in the woods, like someone has a lantern. It walks to a point in the woods and then stops. I stay still. in the dark and watch it for a long while, about to shrug it off when the light moves again, coming around and going down the side of the cabin, closer, but not close enough to see who is carrying it. I realize it's heading to the window by the kids' bunk beds. Sneaking over and close to the window and shutters, I shut them. The light stays close on the other side of the shutters for a long time before moving on and disappearing. Day 3. I tell all the adults about the light. They dismiss it as probably a ranger checking on the campsite. Kids by this time are totally freaking each other out over kitty cow, literally starting to be afraid to leave the craft area in broad daylight because kitty cow might be there. There are all sorts of weird kitty cow stories now. That afternoon, we find out a bear broke into another camp and ate food. So in addition to a real threat, we think that may be the origin of kitty cow. Plus, it would make sense that there would be rangers out looking, as there's a bear on the loose. Night 3. I stay up listening to music to see if the lights will come back. About 1 a.m., I see it coming by again, and again, walking to a point in the woods, waiting. Around 1:30, it starts getting closer to the cabin. As it's walking around the side, I hear one of the other chaperones start to yell, "Hey, who is that? Who's out there?" The light cuts off. I yell back at the chaperone that I saw it too. What should we do? I am terrified at this point. The chaperone tells me to bring my kids over to her, holding hands. We cram all of the kids into one cabin, and a bit later, a thunderstorm starts. For another night, I basically get no sleep. The next day, everyone sort of laughs it off, sort of saying we weren't seeing anything. Maybe it was heat lightning or kids playing with flashlights that we saw reflected. I'm so sleep deprived that it hurts, and I'm hearing popping noises. I end up being paired with another chaperone, and we go for a hike with the kids. It's all foggy in the woods, and the kids are really strung out between excitement from the night before, which they blame on kitty cow. Out in the woods, the kids start claiming they're seeing kitty cow everywhere, sneaking up on us. I can't tell you how weird and terrifying things got then. You had this Silent Hill fog, all of these girls wearing matching ponchos. The scene was so surreal. The kids were freaking out over every tree, screaming kitty cow is coming to get them. And I'm barely held together on no sleep, convinced myself that some weirdo has been creeping around our camp. Things literally devolve into mass hysteria. The kids are literally falling to the ground, screaming and sobbing. The other chaperone leaves. She just books it out of the forest, back to camp, while I am coaxing and pulling and carrying screaming children out of the mist. I got the kids almost back to camp when the other chaperones come rushing out. The chaperone who left claimed she saw a bear and ran for her life. I didn't leave any kids behind. I have never and I will never experience anything as creepy and terrifying as I did that afternoon in the woods. While nothing happened, it has haunted my dreams since then. Story 3. Grandma. My grandmother died on my 9th birthday. She was pretty sick. She went into the hospital during Hurricane Bob and stayed there until she passed. I remember things got pretty bad that New Year's, so my parents went to the hospital and my aunt was watching us. I remember laying in bed and praying. I am not religious at all. Praying that she'd be okay and that she would come home. And that if she wouldn't be okay, that at least she'd be happy in heaven. I was also extremely sad that she was going to miss my birthday, New Year's Day. Around 11:30 at night, I woke up to somebody calling my name from the hallway. I went and looked and no one was there. I checked all the bedrooms, the kitchen, the living room, etc. Everyone was asleep, so there was no way my aunt or brother were calling my name. I figured I just heard it in my dreams and went back to bed. As I was trying to fall back asleep, I distinctly, like clear as day, remember hearing my grandmother. I couldn't see her, but I could certainly feel her and hear her. I can't say for certain I wasn't dreaming, but if I was, this was the most lucid dream I have ever had. She said to me, "I held on for as long as I could so I wouldn't miss your birthday. My present will be a little late. It will be next year. Happy birthday." Then silence. The next year, my aunt gave me a cat for my birthday. The cat, Felix, and I instantly bonded. much like my grandmother and I. He followed me literally everywhere, never leaving my side. He'd walk on a leash beside of me, ride in the car with me, everything. The day I bought my first house is the day he abruptly passed away from cancer. He lived nearly 19 years. As weird as it sounds, I'm convinced that my grandmother had planned to come back to me as a cat and stuck with me until she felt I no longer needed her. Little does she know, I'll always need her. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you did, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. Bye!